Every so often, a game comes along that stays with you for a long time, even after you've rolled the credits and moved on to other titles. There's just something about it that pulls you back and has you diving into its world and gameplay loop almost without thinking about it.
Late is the hour, young one, in which you choose to stain my tranquil abode.
While I'm sure 2025 has given many of you more than a couple of such titles, I'm taken back to this time last year. I was probably on my way to wrapping up Black Myth Wukong after a thoroughly enjoyable adventure that retraced the journey of the protagonist, and once I did, life felt a little empty. Other games just didn't cut it for me for a while after. But what made Game Science's excellent take on Wukong so special? Why did I jump at the chance to replay the game earlier this year when it finally made its way to the Xbox? What is it about the protagonist's journey that makes me want to relive it the second I get a block of time to do so? Join me as I dive into why this is a game that simply stands out among the crowd. A captivating world to explore.
I'm old now. Venture through all the lands I cannot. Yet among you, there might be one who is destined. One that shall recover all his scattered relics. And upon the return of the relics to Mount Tuaguo, he may yet rise again.
From the very first moment of the game, it was clear that this was a world that I would explore every inch of. The fight between Wukong and Erlang Shen, presented with a captivating cinematic flair, had me very invested in why the two warriors were so disdainful of each other. I knew I was going to be diving deep into every bit of detail that I could uncover during my playthrough. It isn't just the visuals that are spellbinding, but the manner in which the world is presented to you, every facet of the journey being brought to your attention in subtle ways. It's hard to forget a headless musician appearing at random to drop a few catchy bars on what you're currently experiencing, for instance. The distinct themes that accompanied each level, and the subtle ways in which they were incorporated into the world and level design were simply amazing. They permeated the enemies, bosses, characters, and even the gear and loot that you can uncover as you explored the respective level. The secrets I uncovered the first time I played the game deserve a special mention here. They were so subtly incorporated into the level design that I almost missed out on a major chunk of the game's very first level, writing off a random bell as just a fun instance of the protagonist imitating Wukong's irreverence. That would certainly have been a mistake, considering that the item at the end of the questline was one that I used right up to the end of the game. Every armor set that I unlocked was unique in its own way, a far cry from loot-heavy titles that encouraged mixing and matching instead of focused builds. I'm going to dive into the game's build potential and replayability a little later down the line, but each armor set's unique visual look and perks were a very important part of why Black Myth Wukong instantly clicked for me, and why I continued to come back to it whenever I could. Of course, every enemy I fought in the game is also an important part of that. The boss designs on this one were simply outstanding, acting as very memorable bookmarks within the same level and between them too. The looms, for instance, were a perfect balance of creativity and challenge that had me quite invested in that secret quest. And the rewards defeating each one granted were not to be scoffed at either. Of course, the Yellow Wind Sage is going to get a shout out from me thanks to the context behind that fight, and the boss himself. This was among my favorite characters in the game, dripping with sheer arrogance and menace in his quest to hold on to the relic of Wukong that I was trying to take from him. His connection with the headless musician I previously mentioned is a detail I'd encourage you to explore if you're yet to play the game. It's a chapter that other games are yet to beat in my book. Exploring the game's breathtaking environments and uncovering the fresh surprises hidden within each level are key reasons why this experience continues to stand out as one of my favorites, even a year after its release. But that's not the only reason. there is a special argument to be made in favor of another important part of Black Myth's gameplay loop. It's combat. Action-adventure done right. Despite Game Science's insistence that Black Myth: Wukong was not a Souls-like title, it's clear that my favorite genre of games served as an inspiration for the studio. Every enemy in the game had the potential to send me packing to my death if I wasn't methodical and careful in my approach. Learning their movesets and timing my actions to exploit weaknesses was very much a part of the combat loop on offer, as was finding a combination of armor and charms that fit my playstyle. That's pretty darn close to what I've experienced with the best Souls-likes, but Wukong does differently in that it removes the frustration that becomes a trademark of the genre. Leveling up your protagonist isn't as risk-based since you don't lose any of your hard-earned will for a tiny mistake that resulted in your death. Moreover, despite my initial annoyances at only having access to a quarterstaff and no other weapon types for the entirety of the game, I soon came to realize that there were other options at my disposal. Each of the special skills I unlocked over the course of my adventure were so well implemented that I often found myself switching things up just to get the thrill of pulling them out at precisely the right moment. For instance, the ability to turn to stone and parry an incoming attack was what finally allowed me to wreck the Dragon Lung after multiple attempts to get a grip on the boss's moveset that had me scrambling to keep up. The depth that Black Myth's combat system brings to the table is doled out gradually and in a way that does not let you feel overpowered against any of its bosses the first time you take them on. But then, New Game Plus comes along and now things get very interesting. It's where the game's build variety comes into play, allowing you to try out a variety of strategies. It's always great to see a game have you inflict a debuff on yourself just to tease out more power from your build. And for me, the Centipede armor is among the finest additions to the game in that regard. I found the damage buff it gives you to be so potent when it's paired with the right charms, drinks, and other gear. It let me tear through grunt enemies while the first few bosses I encountered in my first playthrough were simply unable to withstand the onslaught of attacks I unleashed upon them. When you get going with it, Wukong's combat is a power trip that only Wuchang Fallen Feathers, another title from a Chinese studio, has come close to replicating. But no matter how powerful your build is, all it takes is a few mistakes for your enemies to turn the tables. That's especially true in areas where there is no clipping on ledges and the like, meaning that a badly placed dodge can send you crashing to your death just as easily as the foe that you were facing could. Black Myth: Wukong's combat system brings incredible depth and unpredictability to the table, and it's among the finest combat systems I've seen outside the genre that inspired it. A well-rounded experience. With grand set pieces punctuating action-packed combat in a detailed, well-executed world, Black Myth's biggest strength is the manner in which its many elements seamlessly blend to create a game that will always have me smiling fondly when I think about my first time peeling back its many layers. It's a rare game that makes you feel like you're actually a part of Wukong's journey, learning everything the protagonist had to offer ahead of a final confrontation that has only one of the most iconic moments involving a healing flask that I've ever seen. If you know, you know. I'm yet to discover another action game that has managed to get me so invested in the experience that I'd give up on sleep just to play another hour or two of it. It's definitely right up there with Sekiro Shadows Die Twice as far as its execution and presentation are concerned, and that's quite the compliment considering my love for that title. But as far as action-adventure titles go, the protagonist's trek through Wukong's life is the one to beat. Hey, did you know that we at GamingBolt upload new videos every day? Stick around, drop a like, subscribe, and hit that bell. And let us know what kind of content you'd like to see in the future with a comment below.